The screen was inhuman, soaring above the incessant boot-sing chilling, guttural wail that sent a shiver down 7-year-old Emma Thompson's spine. Through her bedroom window, she caught sight of Rex, her German shepherd, thrashing frantically beneath a swirling black and yellow cloud. Thousands of bees engulfed him, his splendid coat vanishing beneath the thrumming swarm. Another scream pierced the sweltering Arizona air. "Rex," she shouted, her tiny hands pressed against the glass. "Emma, stay inside," her grandfather Walter shouted from the porch, his weathered face pale with panic. But Emma had already bolted through the door. The distance between the farmhouse and the old shed where Rex lay seemed endless. Her heart hammered against her ribs, and behind her, she heard her grandfather's desperate shots growing fainter. Rex's eyes, filled with torment, met hers, and in that instant, nothing else held significance. Emma dove into the swarm, inviting you to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments, along with the city you're tuning in from. Now, let's carry on with the tale. Walter Thompson's calloused hands wrapped around his morning coffee as he surveyed the drought-stricken fields of Saguaro Valley. At 63, his once formidable military stance had mellowed, yet his gaze remained sharp, particularly when it fell upon Emma. His granddaughter's golden hair shimmered in the early sunlight as she perched on the porch steps, her small fingers sifting through Rex's dense fur. "You're the best boy in Arizona. You know that," she murmured to the German shepherd, whose wise brown eyes stayed fixed on her face. Rex had been David's final gift to his daughter before deployment, a deployment from which Emma's father never returned. Walter's relationship with the dog had been strained from the start. The animal reminded him too much of his son, of promises broken, and a future erased by an IED on a dusty road half a world away. "Doc eats more than his share," Walter often grumbled, though he secretly filled Rex's bowl when supplies ran low. The small farmhouse they shared sat isolated at the end of a dirt road, their nearest neighbor, Hannah Parker, living half a mile down the way. Hannah's small apiary produced the valley's finest honey, her knowledge of bees and traditional remedies making her both respected and slightly feared by the town's more conventional residents. "School bus comes in 20 minutes, Emma girl," Walter called, watching as the child buried her face in Rex's neck. "We're ready, grandfather," she responded, her voice imbued with a depth that belied her 7 years. Grief had marked her, just as it had marked him. Dr. Sarah Mitchell's veterinary clinic stood as one of the rare medical resources in Saguaro Valley, catering to both the livestock of the farming community and beloved pets with unwavering commitment. Despite her limited equipment, she had been caring for Rex since his arrival, captivated by the former police canine's training and temperament. "That dog watches over her like she's made of gold," she often remarked. Dr. Mitchell once remarked to Walter, "You don't encounter bonds like that every day." The town itself was battling for survival. 3 years of drought had taken a toll on the community's agricultural backbone. Farms were failing, families were leaving, and those who remained held onto each other with the fierce loyalty of survivors. Yet, none of this seemed to matter to Rex, whose focus was solely on the small girl now skipping to brush her teeth. His eyes tracked her every movement, and his ears were attuned to any potential threat to his precious charge. The morning routine at the Thompson farmhouse unfolded with its usual cadence. Walter prepared Emma's lunch, peanut butter and strawberry jam sandwiches cut into triangles, apple slices nestled in a Ziploc bag, and a juice box. All while she brushed her teeth and collected her books. Rex stood by the door, his stance both attentive and at ease, a sentinel prepared for the tasks ahead. "Don't forget, your science project is due on Friday." Walter pressed a baseball cap onto her head, shielding her from the relentless Arizona sun. Eleanor mentioned that Emma could interview her about the bees after school today. Emma nodded, her solemn blue eyes mirroring David's as they looked up at him. "I know, Grandpa. I've got my questions all written out," she said, patting the notebook in her backpack. Always organized, always prepared. Sometimes Walter forgot she was only 7. Grief had compelled her to mature far too quickly. The bus trundled along the dirt road at exactly 7:30 a.m., kicking up dust clouds that lingered in the tranquil morning air. Rex's routine remained steadfast. He would accompany Emma to the end of the driveway, sit as she boarded, and watch until the yellow vehicle vanished around the bend. Only then would he return to Walter, as if reluctantly handing over guardianship. Until the afternoon? "She'll be back before you know it," Walter said gruffly as Rex returned, the dog's gaze still fixed on the empty road. The old man's hand hovered above the German shepherd's head before withdrawing without making contact. A year had passed, yet Walter couldn't bring himself to fully embrace the animal his son had chosen. Walter's morning unfolded with the usual chores, checking irrigation lines, mending fences, and tallying their dwindling savings against mounting bills. The military pension and David's death benefits barely sustained them. The idea of losing the farm loomed heavily over them. David's origins and background haunted Walter during sleepless nights. Around midday, Walter observed Rex's peculiar actions. The dog, usually satisfied to survey the boundaries of the property, repeatedly returned to the neglected tool shed by the western fence line. His demeanor had shifted, ears perked up, body taut. "What has gotten into you?" Walter muttered, his gaze fixed on Rex as the dog circled the shed, occasionally pawing at the ground near its foundation. The shed had once been David's childhood hideaway, later transforming into his workshop, and finally serving as a storage space for equipment they could no longer afford to maintain. Since his son's death, Walter had steered clear of it, unable to confront the half-finished projects and tools still arranged as David had left them. By early afternoon, Rex's behavior grew increasingly agitated. Walter watched from the kitchen window while preparing a simple lunch, noting how the dog stood motionless, staring intently at something near the shed's weather-beaten door. Walter's instincts, sharpened over 3 decades of military service, tingled with a sense of foreboding. Something was amiss. He stepped onto the back porch, squinting against the glaring sunlight. "Rex, come here, boy," he called, his voice echoing through the yard. Rex glanced momentarily at Walter before shifting his focus back to the shed, his posture revealing a deep-seated worry. In an instant, the dog bolted forward, vanishing around the corner of the small structure. The ensuing silence was brief, shattered moments later by a sound Walter had never encountered, a piercing, anguished scream that seemed impossible for any creature to produce. Yet it unmistakably came from Rex. Walter's heart raced as he hurried around the shed, and the sight that met his eyes sent a chill through him. Rex was enveloped in a writhing mass of honeybees, thousands of them swarming over his fur, invading his ears, and surrounding his eyes. The dog thrashed in desperation, howling as he rolled on the ground, fighting to rid himself of the relentless attackers. "Rex!" Walter shouted, instinctively stepping forward, before the rational part of his mind cautioned him to retreat. The swarm was massive, clearly an entire colony in defense mode. Approaching without protection would only lead to another victim. Walter's thoughts surged with urgency. Eleanor would have the answers. He pivoted to dash toward the kitchen phone when a flicker of motion drew his gaze. Emma was at her bedroom window, her face pressed against the glass, just back from school on the early bus. Her eyes were filled with dread as she took in Rex's plight. Before Walter could respond, she vanished from view. "Emma, stay inside," he shouted, altering his path to reach her, but he was already too late. The screen door swung wide, and Emma charged onto the porch, her petite face etched with resolve. "Emma, no," Walter roared, genuine fear coursing through him. "Get back inside." But Emma was already sprinting across the yard, her backpack still hanging over one shoulder. Walter's anxiety grew as he recalled the EpiPen tucked away in the kitchen drawer. Emma's intense allergy to bee stings had been identified after a single encounter had plunged her into anaphylactic shock 2 years ago. Just one sting could be fatal for her. thousands would prove deadly in mere minutes. Walter's voice trembled with urgency. She hesitated just briefly to respond with a shout. "He requires my assistance. Grandpa Rex requires my help." The dog's cries persisted, though now they were fainter, his movements growing increasingly unsteady. Walter understood that Rex was slipping away before him, the venom from countless stings taking its toll on his body. Walter stood at a crossroads, confronted with a choice that felt insurmountable. His granddaughter or his son's daughter choice should have been straightforward. Yet he found himself unable to move, his thoughts immobilized by the clashing demands. Emma felt no hesitation as she dropped her backpack and sprinted toward the shed, toward Rex, toward the deadly swarm that could end her life in an instant. Her small voice rang out steady and clear despite the peril. "I'm coming." Rex's gaze fixed on the small girl sprinting toward imminent peril, snapping Walter out of his stupor. "Almighty, no," he whispered, then charged forward. But Emma had already reached the garden hose coiled near the shed. With surprising strength, she cranked the spigot fully open and directed the spray toward Rex. Water arced through the air, drenching the dog and dispersing some of the bees. Walter observed in disbelief as his 7-year-old granddaughter, her face etched with the same resolve he had witnessed countless times in her father's demeanor, battled to rescue her dog armed only with a garden hose and sheer bravery. "Stand back." Emma. Walter finally arrived, trying to grab the hose. "No, Grandpa, the water helps." She kept spraying, her small hands steady despite the terrifying scene unfolding before them. "We need dish soap, it stops them from flying." Walter stared at her, momentarily taken aback by her knowledge and composure. Then he noticed the first bee land on her arm, followed by another on her neck. In that instant, he ordered her to move, physically lifting her away from the scene. But Rex, tears streaming down her face, struggled against his grip. "I'll help him," she insisted. Walter vowed to make a split-second decision that would alter everything. "Grab the dish soap and my work gloves." Emma rushed into the house, her tiny feet thumping against the aged floorboards. Walter turned back to Rex, whose cries had faded into whimpers, his strong body now barely twitching beneath the overwhelming mass. The old man's mind raced through his training: assess, strategize, execute. Yet nothing had equipped him for this. "Hang on, boy," he muttered, surprised by the emotion that colored his voice. Emma returned moments later, gripping a bottle of blue dish soap and Walter's sturdy leather work gloves. Her face was flushed, a fierce determination waging war against the fear etched in her youthful features. "Stay back," Walter warned, clutching the supplies tightly. "A minimum of 10 feet, do you understand?" "But I've got it all figured out, Grandpa. Meliner instructed us on the 10 feet Lillian. Grace Thompson, or I promise I'll hold you within me." His tone allowed for no debate. Emma stepped back, adhering to the required distance. Walter donned his gloves and uncapped the dish soap, squeezing a generous amount into the spray from the still-running hose. The water morphed into sudsy streams, slicing through the black and yellow cloud enveloping Rex. "The soap disrupts their wings." Emma's voice remained unwavering in the face of peril. "Keep spraying in," she commanded. Grandpa Walter tore with precision, thoroughly drenching the dog from head to tail. Bees fell from Rex's fur, their wings rendered useless by the soapy mixture, while others buzzed away, bewildered by the chemical interference with their attack pheromones. A few shifted their gaze to Walter, feeling the sting through his thin shirt, yet he hardly acknowledged the pain. His attention had narrowed to the dying dog before him. For the first time, Walter saw Rex not as David's replacement or an unwanted burden. The outskirts, a 15-minute drive that Walter aimed to complete in 10. As they raced down the dusty road, Walter's thoughts raced back to a memory he had buried deep for months. David's voice echoed in their last phone call. "Take care of Rex for me, Dad. He'll watch over Emma when I can't." At that moment, Walter had brushed it off as typical sentiment from a soldier about to be deployed. Now, those words felt heavy with foreboding. They were just 5 minutes from town when Emma's voice pierced the air in panic. "Grandpa!" Rex lay there, not breathing properly. Walter's heart raced as he pulled over to the shoulder, dust swirling around them. He jumped out and hurried to the truck bed, where Rex was motionless, his breath shallow and erratic. Emma's hands and clothes were speckled with the stingers she had removed, her commitment clear in the countless she had already extracted. As Walter felt his throat constrict, he spoke without a moment's pause, comparing his situation to hers. He reached for the red medicine box that Emma had brought inside, where he found her spare EpiPen, the emergency epinephrine injector that had once saved her life during an allergic reaction. While veterinary medicine wasn't his strong suit, he understood basic biology. This might hasten his demise. Walter hesitated, meeting Emma's gaze but remaining still. Emma nodded, her trust in her grandfather unwavering. With determination, Walter removed the safety cap and plunged the auto-injector into the muscle of Rex's upper thigh, just as he had been trained to do for Emma. For a terrible moment, nothing happened, then Rex shuddered, a wheezing gasp escaping his swollen throat back in the truck. Walter had already placed the order, making his way to the driver's door. "We need to get him to Dr. Mitchell immediately," as they merged back onto the road. Emma called from the truck bed. "He rescued me once, Grandpa did." "Did Daddy ever mention how?" Walter frowned. He slowed slightly to catch her words over the wind. "What are you talking about?" "Last summer, before Daddy deployed, we were at the creek, and I slipped on the rocks." Emma's voice held a deep respect, as if recounting a cherished moment. "The current was particularly fierce that day, dragging me beneath the surface." Walter's hold on the steering wheel grew firmer, and David had never brought this up before. "Rex leaped in after me." Emma pressed on as he tugged at my shirt with his teeth, drawing me toward the shore. Daddy remarked that he had never witnessed anything quite like it. The revelation hit Walter with the force of a physical blow. All this time, he had seen Rex simply as David's pet, a painful reminder of his lost son. He had never considered that the dog might have already saved what Walter cherished most. They reached Dr. Mitchell's small clinic in record time, Walter honking continuously as he pulled into the gravel parking lot. The veterinarian emerged from the front door, wiping her hands on a towel, alarm crossing her face as she took in the scene. "The attack," Walter explained tersely as he lifted Rex from the truck bed. "Thousands of them. I used an EpiPen on him about 3 minutes ago." Dr. Mitchell's professional demeanor took over. "Bring him inside exam room 1, she instructed, turning to her assistant who had appeared in the doorway. "Prepare intravenous therapy and call Dr. Ramirez at urgent care. Tell him we may have a pediatric anaphylaxis case coming." Walter froze mid-step, the word pediatric echoing in his mind. Emma was all right. She hadn't been stung. However, when he turned to glance at his granddaughter, he noticed what Dr. Mitchell had quickly observed. Emma's face was starting to swell, with red blotches emerging on her neck and arms. She stood unsteadily next to the truck, one hand gripping her throat. "I'm sorry, Grandpa," she whispered. "I didn't want you to worry about me until Rex was safe." As Emma fell to her knees, the world around Walter Thompson changed irrevocably. The following hours unfolded in a whirlwind of urgent action, as Dr. Mitchell's modest veterinary clinic morphed into a temporary emergency hub for both human and canine patients. Walter paced the narrow hallway between exam rooms, his weathered face marked by lines of concern that appeared to deepen with each passing minute. "Mr. Thompson." Dr. Mitchell stepped out of the room where Rex was resting, attached to for fluids and oxygen. Her typically tidy ponytail had unraveled, with strands of graying hair softly outlining her weary face. "He's stable for the moment. I've extracted over 300 stingers, but there are probably more lodged in his fur." Walter nodded, his focus split as he turned to Emma. Dr. Ramirez remains by her side, placing a gentle hand on Walter's arm. "The ambulance is on its way to transport her to Maricopa County Hospital, and her reaction is intense. Walter, I won't soften the truth. The words hit him like punches. He had confronted enemy fire with less dread than he felt in this moment. Can I see her? He asked. Doctor. Mitchell nodded, leading him to the next room where Emma was on an examination table, an oxygen mask obscuring her delicate features, her skin marred by furious red hives. Dr. Ramirez, the sole urgent care physician in town, observed her vital signs with a concentrated intensity that offered no comfort to Walter. Her airways compromised. Dr. Ramirez explained directly that the epinephrine is assisting, but she requires pediatric intensive care. The helicopter is unavailable due to an accident on the interstate, so we will be using ground transport instead. Walter moved to his granddaughter's side, taking her small hand in his. Her fingers were still stained with Rex's blood from removing stingers. Even in crisis, she'd thought of the dog first, just like her father would have. I'm here, Emma girl, he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. You're going to be just fine. Her eyes slowly opened, the blue irises barely discernible through the swollen lids. Rex, she gasped, her voice strained through the mask. He's holding on, Walter reassured her, fighting back the lump in his throat. Dr. Mitchell is taking good care of him. Emma's fingers tightened around his, her eyes conveying what her constricted throat couldn't. Walter understood she was entrusting Rex to him. I'll look after you. Walter assured you to concentrate solely on your recovery. The ambulance arrived with a wail of sirens that sent the clinic's waiting room cats scurrying for cover. Paramedics moved with practiced efficiency, transferring Emma to a stretcher and loading her into the vehicle. Walter climbed in beside her, his tall frame awkward in the confined space. Sir, we need room to work, one paramedic began, but Dr. Ramirez intervened. He stays, the doctor said firmly. He's all she has. The 40-minute journey to Maricopa County Hospital was the longest of Walter's life. He watched helpless as Emma's oxygen levels fluctuated and her blood pressure dropped dangerously low, requiring a second dose of epinephrine. The paramedics worked with quiet urgency, their calm voices belying the seriousness of the situation. Walter held Emma's hand throughout, his thumb tracing gentle circles on her palm as he had when she was a toddler frightened by thunderstorms. He spoke quietly, a steady stream of reassurances and memories anchoring them both. Remember when we saw that double rainbow last spring? You said it was Daddy saying hello from heaven. Walter's voice cracked. And the time you taught Rex to carry your lunchbox to the bus stop? He was so proud of himself. Whether Emma could hear him through her semi-conscious state, Walter couldn't tell, but speaking helped him maintain his own composure, keeping the rising tide of panic at bay. At the hospital, Emma was whisked away by the pediatric emergency team, leaving Walter alone in a sterile waiting room with forms to fill out and his thoughts for company. He stared at the clipboard in his hands, the questions blurring before his eyes. Details regarding coverage, health background, urgent contact information. The ordinary administrative details felt utterly ridiculous against the backdrop of the unfolding crisis. His cell phone buzzed. Mitchell was calling for an update on Emma. Walter shared the scant information he possessed before inquiring about Rex. He's still critical but fighting, she replied. These next 24 hours will be crucial. The antihistamines are taking effect, but the venom load was enormous. I'd never witnessed an attack this severe. What could have triggered it? Walter pondered, his thoughts racing for clarity. Why were those bees targeting him? Dr. Mitchell remained quiet for a brief moment. Hannah Parker arrived after learning about the incident, eager to delve into the hive's situation, convinced that something significant must have triggered their fierce reaction. Walter nodded in agreement, though she was unaware of his silent warning to proceed with caution. Whatever had disturbed them might still be lurking nearby. After their conversation ended, the weight of concern lingered. Walter found himself gazing at the background image on his phone, a photo of David in uniform, arm draped around Rex's neck, both squinting in the harsh desert sunlight. It had been captured just days before David's final deployment. Walter had steered clear of it for months, the resemblance between father and dog too heart-wrenching to birth sane watchful eyes, the same protective stance. A gentle hand on his shoulder pulled him from his reverie. A pediatrician in scrubs stood before him, her expression meticulously neutral, a skill honed by medical professionals when conveying uncertain news. "Mr. Thompson, I am Dr. Keller, specializing in pediatric immunology. Your granddaughter's condition has stabilized, but she remains in critical condition. She has been placed in a medically induced coma to safeguard her airway and facilitate the reduction of swelling." Walter took in this information with a calm demeanor that concealed his inner conflict. "When will she wake up?" "That depends on how quickly she responds to treatment. It could be 24 hours or longer." Dr. Keller sat beside him, holding his gaze. "Mr. Thompson, Emma endured at least 15 distinct stings that we've recognized thus far. Given her history of anaphylaxis, it's astonishing that she survived. She was attempting to rescue her dog." Walter shared a flicker of pride amidst his concerns as Dr. Keller acknowledged his feelings. "She must care for him deeply, more than I realized," Walter confessed quietly. The following 3 days forged a new pattern. Walter split his time between the hospital in Phoenix and Dr. Mitchell's clinic, making the 40-minute drive back and forth several times each day. He found himself sleeping in hard chairs, living off vending machine snacks and coffee, and feeling the weight of time pressed down on him in just 72 hours. Emma stayed in her induced coma. Her body was gradually mending. The doctors maintained a cautious optimism, yet they cautioned about potential complications. Damage to the kidneys resulting from the breakdown of muscle, neurological consequences of extended oxygen deprivation. Rex exhibited notable signs of recovery, his tenacious canine body battling the severe effects of venom exposure. By the 3rd day, he managed to raise his head as Walter walked into the kennel area. Though his swollen face obscured his expression, his tail gave a faint thump of acknowledgement. "Hey there, tough guy." Walter knelt beside the cage, his protesting knees forgotten as he greeted Rex for the first time. With a newfound courage, he reached through the bars, gently stroking the unswollen parts of the dog's neck. "Emma is holding on. She needs you to do the same." Mitchell found him there an hour later, still speaking softly to Rex about nothing in particular weather forecasts. "Baseball scores evoke memories of David as a boy, you know," she said, leaning against the doorframe. "He hasn't eaten for anyone else, not even a bite, but I bet he'd take something from you." Walter looked up, surprised. "He doesn't even like me much, Doctor." Mitchell smiled. "It seems both of you are reconsidering your views of one another." She handed Walter a small bowl of soft food, specially formulated for recovering animals. After some gentle coaxing, Rex accepted a few mouthfuls from Walter's hand, a small victory that felt monumental. News of the incident spread through Saguaro Valley with the efficiency of small-town communication networks. By the 4th day, the hospital waiting room was periodically filled with neighbors bearing casseroles, the clinic with farmers offering to cover Walter's chores, and the local church organized a prayer vigil. A large card, filled with signatures from every student, was sent by the school as Hannah Parker made her way to the clinic. Late one evening, her silver hair was neatly tied back in a practical braid, and her expression grave. "I found something you need to see," she said to Walter, diving straight into the matter. They occupied Dr. Mitchell's small office, a desk positioned between them, while Eleanor unfolded close-up images capturing the textures and details of the ground surrounding Walter's shed, the impaired beehive and an unsettling dark mark on the ground. "Initially, I believed that someone had inadvertently disrupted the hive," she elaborated on her thoughts, an aged finger rhythmically striking one image. "Yet this is no mere coincidence. Walter, someone spilled something near that shed, something that agitated those bees." In a whirlwind of emotions, Walter fixated on the photographs from his military days. Training in evidence collection was underway as Eleanor nodded in agreement. I've sent samples to a friend at the university, but I'm quite certain it's a pesticide, and a banned one at that. Highly concerning. It's harmful, particularly to bees. Who would do such a thing, and for what reason at my shed, Eleanor's? The expression grew somber. And that's what concerns me. Your land adjoins Westland. Agricultural's new fields have been attempting to acquire every small farm in the valley, and the implication lingered in the air. There was a palpable distance between them. Walter had turned down Westland's purchase offers on 3 separate occasions over the past year, each rejection more resolute than the last. Than the previous, the corporation's expansion plans relied on obtaining the water rights associated with his property. Do you believe they're attempting to force me out? The notion appeared improbable, yet Walter found it difficult to completely disregard it in the corporate realm. Hannah thoughtfully remarked that farming had transformed the dynamics of rural life. Someone aimed to complicate your existence. Destroying your bees would be one thing, but they had to be aware of Emma's presence. Everyone in town is familiar with that tale. The thought that someone might have intentionally put his granddaughter at risk sparked a simmering. Rage surged in Walter's chest. Before he could respond, his phone rang. Hospital calling with an update on Emma. He informed Hannah that the doctors are decreasing her sedation following the call. They anticipate her waking up by morning. Hannah tightened her grip on his hand. That's fantastic news, Walter. Why don't you go back to the hospital? I'll hold down the fort here. With Rex tonight, Walter hesitated, caught in a conflict. Are you certain about your responsibilities? That girl requires her grandfather by her side when she awakens. Walter reached the hospital soon after. Before the clock struck midnight, he settled into his usual spot in the chair next to Emma's bed. The rhythmic beeping of monitors had transformed into an odd source of solace, each sound confirming she still fought. Her face had nearly returned to normal. The swelling subsided, yet the dark circles beneath her eyes revealed the struggle her body endured. As he prepared for yet another restless night, Walter discovered himself engaging in an activity he hadn't engaged in since David's passing, hoping not for the structured invocations of his earlier days or the urgent pleading that followed the heartbreaking news of his son's passing, yet expressed in plain language. Filled with appreciation that Emma continued to breathe, that Rex persisted in his struggle, that he had endured, given another opportunity to safeguard what was left of his family, he awoke to the gentle embrace of early morning sunlight, light filtering through hospital blinds, accompanied by the unsettling feeling of being observed, eyes blinking in response. Away, sleep. Walter found Emma's blue eyes. David's eyes were focused on him, the breathing tube in place. Erased her look, a blend of puzzlement and realization. Grandpa, her voice was raspy from the tube, barely audible. Walter leaned forward, gently taking her small hand in his. I'm here, Emma girl, he said softly. You're all right now, her eyes brimming with tears. Rex is Rex, right? Naturally. That would be her initial inquiry. Walter smiled, his own eyes reflecting the moment. Curiously moist. He's improving. Dr. Mitchell is providing excellent care for him. And Emma's expression softened a bit, although worry still furrowed her brow. He was attempting to shield us, Grandpa. Walter froze, detecting a foul odor near the shed. What do you mean by the day before? Emma elaborated on, her voice strengthening. Rex continued to bark at the shed, preventing me from getting close. I believe Walter remembered Rex's odd behavior, sensing that something was amiss. His intense focus on the shed area was not a mere coincidence. The dog had not been exploring it aimlessly, had been signaling a danger just as he had learned to do in his role as a police canine. You should rest now, Walter said, gently kissing her forehead. We'll talk more later. As Emma drifted back into slumber, Walter quietly made his way into the hallway to summon the doctor. Mitchell, the veterinarian, responded right away. Rex had a hearty breakfast, reported before Walter had the chance to speak. and he is attempting to rise. That's fantastic news, Walter remarked on the remarkable progress made. He paused, wondering if Rex had been trained to detect chemicals. When he served as a police dog indeed. David noted that Rex possessed specialized training in narcotics and chemical detection. Why do you inquire? Walter elaborated what Emma had shared with him, linking it to Hannah's revelation. I believe Rex was attempting to warn us about a potential threat close to the shed when it seems that no one took notice. He likely attempted to look into it on his own. The bees swarmed him, their agitation heightened by the chemical that had been applied. Dr. Mitchell concluded, it makes sense, Walter, but it also implies that someone intentionally entered your premises with a hazardous material. The implications weighed heavily on his mind. Walter expressed his gratitude and concluded the conversation. His thoughts were in a frenzy, contemplating the possibility that someone had deliberately aimed at his property and, by extension, his family. The danger may still linger as Emma kept making progress over the following two. The hospital room transformed into an unexpected center for inquiry. Eleanor presented her photographic evidence, while Sheriff Davis collected statements. Additionally, Dr. Mitchell provided insights regarding Rex's continuous recovery. The residue corresponds to a compound known as neonicotinoid, Eleanor explained, as she showed Walter the findings. Results from the laboratory that her university contact had shared. It has been prohibited for agricultural purposes because of its severe toxicity to bees and other pollinators. Those who utilized it were aware of the risks. Precisely what they were engaged in. Sheriff Davis, a longtime companion of Walter's, appeared distressed. The issue lies in not apprehending someone in time. The situation is entirely circumstantial. We can demonstrate that a chemical was utilized, but not much more. Walter's frustration grew as someone had used it. Emma and Rex, though in danger, may very well evade any repercussions altogether. The feeling of powerlessness brought back memories of hearing about David's death, another instance where fairness appeared elusive, isolated, and insufficient. On the morning Emma was set for discharge, Walter arrived at the hospital to discover her room completely transformed. Get-well cards adorned every surface, while balloons floated gently against the ceiling and a gigantic teddy bear filled the visitor's chair, yet Emma's gaze remained locked on a compact television affixed to the wall, displaying a local news program. Grandpa, look, she pointed excitedly. They're talking about Rex, indeed. A news segment highlighted the veterinary clinic in Saguaro Valley, showcasing Dr. Mitchell's work, describing the incredible comeback of a German Shepherd following a severe bee assault. The narrative transitioned to depict community members engaging in a discussion about the incident, featuring several of Walter's neighbors. Rex has become a local hero, Emma said, her face glowing with pride. Walter observed the segment, his feelings a blend of uncertainty and contemplation. Gaining public attention could potentially safeguard them if there was a genuine threat to his property, yet it also laid bare their vulnerability. The next words from the news anchor seized Walter's complete focus. In related news, state agricultural inspectors have initiated an inquiry into purported chemical pollution close to lands adjacent to Westland Agricultural Holdings Confidential. Reports suggest that unlawful pesticides might have been employed to hasten land acquisition in the region involving Walter and Emma. Shared astonished glances, someone had acknowledged their worries. It was serious enough to reach out to state authorities. The discharge process consumed a significant amount of time, morning with the medical team offering comprehensive guidance for Emma's ongoing recovery and future appointments. In the early afternoon, Walter assisted Emma as she climbed into his truck, her petite overnight bag in hand, and the enormous teddy bear taking up the back seat. Asked, "Can we go see Rex first?" Emma inquired as they exited the hospital parking lot. "Please, Grandpa." Walter found it impossible to resist those sincere blue eyes. Dr. Mitchell assures that he is doing well. Sufficient for guests at this point, I believe that can be organized. The animal hospital was. When they arrived, the waiting room was unusually busy, filled with people who appeared to have no animals with them. Walter acknowledged familiar faces from the local shopkeepers in Saguaro Valley, including Emma's. "What's all this?" he inquired, his confusion apparent as he looked at the receptionist. Word spread that Emma was returning home today, the young woman shared. With a smile, the community wanted to welcome her back and express their gratitude to Rex, said Dr. Mitchell. Stepped out from the shadows, her expression lighting up at the glimpse of Anna. "Here comes our courageous girl. Someone has been quite excited to see you." She took the lead through to the recovery area where Rex occupied the largest kennel. The German shepherd's face still bore signs of swelling, with patches of his fur having been shaved to address stings, with an IV line still in place on his front leg. Yet upon seeing Emma, his whole attitude shifted. Rex fought to rise, his tail wagging with growing vigor, emitting a high-pitched sound. With a whimper escaping his throat, he pressed against the kennel door, straining to reach the girl. "Can I touch him?" Emma asked. Inquired while proceeding with caution. Dr. Mitchell warned he's still recovering. Emma approached the kennel, her small hand extending through the bars. Rex gently licked her fingers, his brown eyes fixed on her face. The connection between them was undeniable. Communication that went beyond mere words. "I knew you'd be okay," Emma whispered to the dog. "You are the most courageous and clever canine in existence." Walter observed the reunion, feeling a constriction in his chest that was unrelated to. For the first time, he felt a wave of anxiety as he truly understood the significance of Rex in Emma's life. More than just a pet or a guardian, but a vital link to David. Emma asked, looking for reassurance. "When can he come home?" "I'll be seeing Dr. Mitchell tomorrow if his blood work keeps showing improvement," the veterinarian responded. "He'll require ongoing care, but he's moved beyond the critical stage." Walter nodded, a resolution forming clearly in his mind. "We'll be ready for him." As they got ready to depart, Hannah Parker stepped into the recovery room, expression serious. "Walter, there are some individuals present here that it would be wise to engage with state agricultural inspectors. They are interested in reviewing the property, particularly the vicinity of the shed." Caught Walter's eye as he looked over at Emma, who remained deeply focused on Rex. "Can it wait until tomorrow?" "I'd prefer to get Emma settled at home first." Eleanor shook her head. "I don't believe they discovered anything at the processing facility in Westland related to chemicals. Containers that align with what was utilized on your property must have thorough documentation for everything." The implications were evident, and evidence was accumulating but required proper handling before it could be compromised. Walter sighed as he knelt down to Emma's level. "Darling, we must pause before heading home. There are some significant individuals we need to see." She gazed at the shed where Rex had been injured, and Emma responded with a solemn nod. "To apprehend the wrongdoers who caused him harm." "That's correct," Walter reiterated once more, impressed by her insight to ensure they pose no threat to others. Upon exiting the clinic, the crowd in the waiting room erupted into spontaneous applause, leading to Emma blushed and buried her face against Walter's side, while Walter nodded in acknowledgement, feeling uneasy with the spotlight yet appreciative of the backing from the community. The state inspectors trailed behind in official vehicles, their presence adding a sense of formality to the situation. Started as a deeply personal sorrow as they traversed the land, with Eleanor highlighting significant spots. Walter observed Emma perched on the porch steps, her gaze locked onto the shed where Rex had come close to death, and in that moment, something essential shifted within their tight-knit family. The threat lingered without resolution, while Rex continued to recover and Emma's health was a concern, required monitoring. Yet Walter experienced an unusual sense of purpose that had eluded him since David's passing. a revitalized dedication not merely to survive but to vigorously safeguard what was left of his family, along with the dog he had taken on with some hesitation. The German shepherd, who had come close to death in a valiant effort to protect them, awaited the morning when Rex was set to return home. Walter. Before dawn, he navigated the stillness of the farmhouse with determination, examining every room with a discerning gaze. Over the past week had altered his viewpoint. What once appeared simply the place now embodied both refuge and possible conflict. Every window, every door, every corner of the property needed careful evaluation. In Emma's room, he put up new blackout curtains to protect her from the relentless Arizona summer sun beat down during her required rest periods, as prescribed by the doctors. Cautioned that her healing process would demand weeks of limited activity, a difficult adjustment for a 7-year-old used to. As he wandered through the vast expanse of their 5 acres, Walter took a moment to reflect at the threshold of David's old room. After a brief pause, he pushed, now serving as storage. The door creaked open, revealing a room filled with cardboard boxes piled high against the walls. Held the tangible echoes of his son's journey: high school trophies, military accolades, commendations, photo albums. Walter had steered clear of this room ever since sorting through David's. The aftermath of the funeral, the memories too vivid to face each day. He moved with purpose, clearing space and shifting boxes to the. By mid-morning, he had transformed the attic, setting up Rex's bed in the room. In the corner, he meticulously arranged his food and water bowls by the window, carefully positioning his toys in just the right spots. A basket next to the bed, the dog warranted more than just the kitchen corner Walter had hesitantly designated before Emma discovered him standing there at the heart of the reclaimed space. She remained silent, merely allowing her. She slipped her small hand into his rough one and squeezed it gently. "Rex will like this," she finally remarked. Walter nodded, his throat tight. "Your daddy would too, Doctor." Mitchell arrived shortly after noon, her clinic truck kicking up dust along the way. On the driveway, Walter and Emma waited on the porch, the girl struggling to hold back her excitement. As the veterinarian assisted Rex out of the vehicle, Emma hurriedly moved ahead, undeterred by anything else. Walter's cautious call echoed as the German shepherd moved stiffly, its gait uneven, areas of trimmed fur exposing the recovering skin underneath. Yet upon seeing Emma, his posture straightened, ears perked up, and tail making a feeble attempt to wag as if seeking approval from the doctor. Mitchell unclipped the leash, giving him the freedom to approach the girl in a friendly manner. Rex moved toward Emma with a deliberate slowness, resting his head softly against her chest in a gesture of affection that brought tears to Walter's eyes. The connection they shared went beyond a remarkable bond formed between a child and their pet, both resilient and intertwined in their journey through collective hardship and shared safeguarding. "He continues to take his medication twice a day, Doctor," Mitchell explained as she handed it over. "Walter carries a bag of supplies. The antihistamines make him feel drowsy, so there's no need for concern if he seems to be sleeping more than normal. His kidney values are a bit elevated due to the venom exposure. He'll require an ample supply of fresh water." Walter took in the instructions, committed to ensuring Rex received the care he needed. "Is there anything else we should be on the lookout for, Doctor?" Mitchell paused, contemplating the possibility of encountering some shifts in his behavior. Increased vigilance and anxiety in the vicinity of the incident, along with potential defensive behaviors, are typical reactions to trauma. Emma knelt beside Rex, her arm draped gently across his shoulders. "He's still the same Rex inside," she said with absolute certainty. "Just hurting a little, Doctor." Mitchell smiled at the child's inside. "Exactly right. Emma, how are you? Do you feel better when Rex is around?" After the veterinarian left, Emma responded with a straightforward remark, and they began to establish a cautious new routine. Rex trailed after Emma, his gaze fixed on her at all times, even as fatigue set in and he longed for a moment of respite. Emma, in turn, appeared to sense his struggles, effortlessly modifying her pace and plans to allow him the time he needed to regain his strength. As Walter lay reading beside his bed, the weight of sleep tugging at him, he watched the tender bond between Emma and the dog with a deepening sense of gratitude. The creature he had once viewed as a painful echo of his past had transformed into a vital part of Emma's journey toward healing, and perhaps, though he hesitated to acknowledge it, his own as well. 3 days after Rex's return, Sheriff Davis arrived unannounced, his expression serious beneath his department-issued cap. With a cowboy hat perched on his head, Walter encountered him on the porch, his voice lowered to prevent waking Emma, who was dozing inside with Rex resting at her feet. "We've got developments," Davis stated directly, skipping any formalities. State investigators discovered matching chemical residue at Westland's storage facility. They have issued warrants for financial records, communication logs, and related documents. Walter took in this information, his military training kicking in as he instinctively analyzed the implications and identified potential suspects. Davis nodded with a somber expression. James Harlow Westland, the regional acquisition manager, has been the one applying pressure for you to sell. His assistant stepped forward yesterday and made a claim. Harlow instructed her to create issues for the holdup properties. The confirmation of intentional targeting ignited Walter's fury, yet he kept his calm. What unfolds now that Harlow has been brought in for questioning? Walter Davis removed his hat, a gesture that instantly raised Walter's awareness there's something more at play. Harlow has denied everything, asserting he has an alibi for when the chemical was introduced. He claims you orchestrated the entire situation for insurance money or sympathy. That's utterly ridiculous, Walter snapped, his voice escalating despite his efforts to stay composed. My granddaughter came very close to losing her life. Rex nearly faced his end. I understand that, Davis reassured him. However, Harlow possesses resources and corporate lawyers who are crafting a narrative suggesting you were in dire financial straits, claiming the farm has been failing. They've accessed your bank records. Walter felt as though the invasion of privacy struck him like a physical blow. They can't just do that without consequences. They obtained a judge's approval based on Harlow's counteraccusation, and Davis appeared genuinely regretful. No one in the valley buys into this nonsense. We all know you, but Westland is really putting up a fight and making things complicated. Walter gripped the porch railing, his knuckles whitening. The corporate strategy was clear. Muddy the waters, create enough doubt to avoid clear liability, and drag things out until he couldn't afford to fight. It was a tactic as old as power itself. What do we do? He asked finally. Davis replaced his hat. For now, document everything. State investigators are on our side, but they need to build a solid case. And Walter, watch your back. If they were willing to do this once. The warning hung in the air between them, unfinished but understood. After Davis left, Walter checked on Emma and Rex, finding them still peacefully asleep. He sat at the kitchen table, head in his hands, the weight of responsibility pressing down. He'd promised David he would keep Emma safe, give her a stable home. Now that home itself had become a target. The ringing phone jarred him from his thoughts. Hannah Parker's voice emerged with an unusual sense of urgency. Walter, turn on Channel 12 News right now, he said, and Walter complied, keeping the volume low. The screen displayed a Westland agricultural spokesperson in a pressed suit standing before microphones, his expression one of professional concern. Westland categorically denies any involvement in the unfortunate incident at the Thompson property, the man stated. In fact, our preliminary investigation suggests the chemical in question may have originated from the Thompson farm itself, possibly mishandled by Mr. Thompson, a Vietnam veteran with documented PTSD. Walter gazed in shock. He had fought in Desert Storm, not Vietnam, and had never received a diagnosis of PTSD. The intentional falsehoods were designed to erode his trustworthiness. "They're attempting to portray you as unhinged," Eleanor remarked over the phone. "The talk at the diner is that they believe you may have put Emma at risk due to carelessness." The accusation pierced Walter's very being. After losing David, Emma's safety became his sole focus. To imply that he would put her in harm's way was unfathomable. A noise from the doorway broke through his tumultuous thoughts. Emma stood there, Rex beside her, both watching him with identical expressions of worry. "Grandpa," Emma's voice was soft, "are the bad people saying hurtful things about you?" Walter managed a comforting smile. "Just adult foolishness. Emma, dear girl, there's nothing for you to fret over." Yet her keen eyes pierced through the facade. "Is it due to what transpired with Rex? Are they placing the blame on you?" Walter turned off the television, selecting his words with precision. "Some individuals from the large corporation interested in our farm are attempting to sidestep accountability. They're spreading falsehoods." Emma absorbed this, her youthful face serious. "Yet we hold the truth, and Rex is aware as well." At the sound of his name, Rex moved forward, pressing against Walter's leg in an unexpected gesture of solidarity. Walter found himself automatically reaching down to stroke the dog's head, the motion becoming natural where once it had been forced. "That's right," Walter consented, and the truth inevitably surfaced. The following morning presented fresh challenges. Dr. Mitchell reached out to share that Rex's recent blood tests revealed troubling kidney values. She suggested conducting more comprehensive panels, mentioning that it could be lingering effects from the venom or a reaction to the medication. Walter consented without hesitation, though anxiety tugged at him. The growing veterinary bills were already stretching their limited resources, and with Emma's medical expenses, their financial situation was becoming increasingly precarious. The farm had struggled to break even for years. David's military death benefits and Walter's pension provided for the essentials, yet there was scant room for anything beyond that as they readied themselves to take Rex to the clinic. Suddenly, the dog's demeanor shifted. He had been sprawled on the kitchen floor while Emma enjoyed her breakfast, appearing at ease. Then, without any forewarning, he sprang to his feet. Hackles raised, a low growl rumbled in his chest. Rex sensed something amiss. Emma's voice was laced with confusion rather than fear. "What's wrong, boy?" The German shepherd moved to the kitchen window, ears forward, body tense. Walter joined him, peering out toward the driveway where a black SUV with tinted windows had pulled up. Two men in business suits emerged, clipboards in hand. "Stay inside with Rex," Walter instructed Emma, moving toward the door. "Don't come out until I say it's okay." He stepped onto the porch purposefully, leaving the screen door ajar behind him. Rex's persistent growling created an atmosphere that Walter found strangely comforting. "Mr. Thompson." The elder of the two gentlemen stepped forward, presenting a business card. "David Mercer from Westland Agricultural here with my colleague Thomas Riggs. We're reaching out to discuss a potential increased offer for your property." Walter has declined the card and expressed disinterest. "We kindly ask that you leave." Mercer offered a faint smile. "Mr. Thompson, in light of recent events, we believe it is in everyone's best interest to resolve this situation amicably. Our new offer is quite generous, providing for your family's relocation to a more suitable property, covering medical expenses for your granddaughter and the dog, with ample funds remaining for her education." The precise reference to Emma's medical expenses, details they had no right to possess, sent a shiver down Walter's spine. It was clear they were watching his family's weaknesses, biding their time to exert their influence. "My response remains the same," Walter stated with conviction. "This land is not available for purchase. Not to Westland, not to anyone." Riggs stepped forward, his tone less conciliatory than that of his colleagues. "Mr. Thompson, it's important to reflect on your stance thoughtfully. Your financial situation is unstable. Your granddaughter needs continuous medical attention. The dog requires costly treatment, And now there's a looming legal liability if negligence is proven concerning the chemical incident. The subtle threat sparked Walter's fury, but years of military training maintained his composure. Are you implying a threat on my own land? Mr. Riggs is merely presenting the facts. Riggs responded with effortless grace. Westland favors collaboration, yet we stand ready for other options. A sudden uproar erupted from within the house. Rex's frantic barking was accompanied by Emma's startled voice. Walter, momentarily diverted, caught a glimpse of movement from the corner of his eye. Riggs had extracted something from his pocket, a small device he swiftly directed toward the open door. Walter reacted instinctively, lunging forward to knock the object from the man's hand. It clattered across the porch, a compact ultrasonic emitter of the type used to repel aggressive dogs. Rex was restless, his agitation palpable, as you employed that tactic on him through the window. Walter, realizing the gravity of the situation, spoke with rising anger. You intentionally upset a recovering creature. Mercer stepped back, hands raised in a calming gesture. Just a simple precaution, Mr. Thompson. Shepherds may exhibit erratic behavior, particularly following a distressing experience. The screen door swung open with a loud bang. Emma burst out, her small face flushed with fury. Stop hurting Rex. He knows you're the bad ones. Behind her, Rex had ceased barking, now standing alert, his keen eyes focused on the visitors with a clear sense of recognition. Walter suddenly realized that Rex was not just responding to the ultrasonic device. He sensed a scent, a presence. You were here before, Walter said slowly, as the pieces began to align in his mind. One of you was present on the day of the attack. Rex recognizes you. Riggs's expression briefly wavered, a flash of uncertainty crossing his features before his professional demeanor reasserted itself. That's absurd. We've never. However, Rex had started to produce a unique vocalization that Walter had never encountered before. It was neither a growl nor a bark, but rather a high-pitched, persistent sound, reminiscent of a trained detection dog signaling that it had located what it was seeking in that instant. Walter perceived the situation with clarity. Rex had not been aimlessly exploring the shed that day. He had been following a scent, alerting to the chemical someone carried, defending his territory. His specialized training had detected a threat that Walter had overlooked. Emma, go inside and call Sheriff Davis, Walter commanded, his tone steady yet firm. Inform him that we need his presence immediately. This is absurd, Mercer exclaimed. We came to present a business proposal, not to be accused of trespassing, criminal endangerment, or attempted corporate sabotage. Walter moved in, leveraging his height to his advantage. Sheriff Davis will undoubtedly want to know why my police-trained detection dog is reacting to you, Mr. Riggs, and even more so, he'll be keen to test that fancy suit of yours for chemical residue. Riggs' composure faltered. You can't prove anything. It would be your word against ours. A new voice entered the fray, drawing everyone's attention to Eleanor Parker, who stood at the edge of the porch, her phone raised and recording. I've been documenting this entire exchange, she stated calmly, including that intriguing little device you used on the dog and the dog's trained alert response. I believe that's what they refer to as probable cause for a chemical residue test, isn't it, Walter? The representatives from Westland exchanged uneasy glances, their earlier confidence fading as Sheriff Davis's patrol car pulled into the driveway, lights flashing. Walter felt Rex press against his leg, not in search of protection but as a partner. For the first time since losing David, Walter sensed a glimmer of hope in their struggle. Sheriff Davis took statements from everyone present, his weathered face revealing nothing as Hannah replayed the video recording. He carefully placed the confiscated ultrasonic device into an evidence bag and then directed the Westland representatives to separate patrol cars for further questioning. We'll need Rex's alert behavior documented by a certified canine trainer, he said quietly to Walter. David's old commander might assist with that. He runs the K9 unit over in Tucson now. Walter nodded, observing as Emma knelt beside Rex, whispering soothing words to the still agitated dog. "Do you think it's enough to build a case?" Davis let out a sigh, adjusting his hat. "It's a start," he remarked. "Tests for chemical residue on the rigs will provide further insights into the matching substances discovered at Westland's facility and Eleanor's video. We now have something substantial to investigate." After the sheriff left with his unwilling passengers, a tense silence enveloped the farmhouse. Walter navigated through his routine tasks with a robotic precision, his thoughts racing through the possibilities and dangers that lay ahead. Eleanor remained for lunch, her practical presence serving as a calming influence for both Walter and Emma. "You should come stay with me for a few days," she suggested while clearing the dishes. "Just until things settle down." Walter shook his head. "We can't run, Eleanor. This is our home." "David's home isn't a place of retreat, it's a strategic pause," she countered with a hint of a smile that softened her words. "Besides, my grandson is coming to visit next week. Tommy is about Emma's age. They could keep each other company while you and I figure out our next steps." The invitation was alluring. Eleanor's farmhouse was more spacious, more inviting, with enhanced security and the advantage of not being directly in Westland's sights. Yet, something within Walter hesitated at the thought of leaving, even if just for a short while. However, the choice was ultimately made for them. Later that afternoon, while Walter was inspecting the irrigation lines, Dr. Mitchell's truck came into view on the dusty road, moving at an unusual speed. She pulled up next to him and rolled down her window. Rex's recent evaluations raised some worries. She stated bluntly that his kidneys were exhibiting significant strain and expressed her desire to initiate for fluids right away. Walter felt a heavy weight in his chest. "How serious is it?" "Potentially very. The venom from B contains substances capable of harming kidney tissue, alongside the dehydration experience during the attack and the medications." She left the sentence incomplete. "He requires close observation for a minimum of 48 hours. Walter nodded, struggling to contain a surge of unexpected emotion. "I'll bring him and Emma inside." He discovered them in David's old room. Emma, sitting cross-legged on the floor next to Rex's bed, read aloud with a gentle cadence. In a picture book, Rex rested with his head on his paws, his eyes half closed, yet with ears keenly tuned to her voice. Walter began softly, "Honey, Dr. Mitchell, Rex needs to be taken to the clinic for a few days. His kidneys aren't functioning properly, and he requires special care." "Medicine?" Emma's expression twisted in anguish. "Is he going to die?" The bluntness of the question hit Walter with the force of a physical blow. Children Emma's age were not meant to. She couldn't help but think of death. The past year had imparted too many lessons about loss. "No, sweetheart," he assured her, kneeling to her level. "However, he requires additional attention at this moment, the type that only Dr. Mitchell can offer." Rex lifted his head, glancing between them as if he grasped the essence of their discussion. As tears streamed down Emma's face, he tenderly licked her hand before mustering the strength to reach for his own. Feet trudging toward the door, embracing the inevitability. "He knows," Emma whispered, wiping her eyes. "He's being brave for me." The observation was so insightful, coming from someone so young, that it tightened Walter's throat. "As you showed courage for him." They assisted Rex in reaching the Dr. Mitchell's truck, with Emma determined to ride in the back alongside him for the brief journey to the clinic. Walter traveled in his own vehicle, already pondering how to handle the extra veterinary costs alongside Emma's, the hospital bills for Rex's ongoing treatment, and the farm's dwindling income. The financial situation was growing increasingly precarious, precisely the vulnerability that Westland aimed to take advantage of at the clinic run by Dr. Mitchell, effectively establishing for Rex, collecting blood for further tests, and providing medication for pain relief. She explained quietly to Walter that the elevated kidney values and nausea were serious. Emma sat with Rex in the treatment area, contemplating the implications of the rising numbers. At the brink of kidney failure, Walter took this in with a calm exterior. His chances are about even, if we're being honest. Dr. Mitchell's expression softened. He's strong, Walter, and he has plenty to exist for, yet the upcoming 48 hours will be pivotal as dusk drew near. Walter approached yet another challenging dialogue with Emma. We need to allow Rex to rest now, he conveyed softly. Pulling her tiny hand away from the dog's fur, she said, we'll return at the break of dawn. Tomorrow. Can't I stay with him? Emma implored her as her eyes filled with concern. He requires some space to work, Grandpa. Dr. Mitchell needs it. Walter articulated that his own hesitance to depart mirrored Emma's. You need to get proper rest as well, the doctor reminded. Emma's lower lip quivered, but she nodded in agreement. Will you courageously let him know we're returning, so he doesn't believe we've abandoned him for good? Walter knelt beside Rex's kennel, locking eyes with the dog's keen and perceptive stare. We'll return at dawn, soldier. Just hold on. Rex's tail wagged feebly against the blankets, his gaze shifting between Walter and Emma, conveying a clear and profound comprehension. As they got ready to depart, Dr. Mitchell pulled Walter aside. I'll stay, he said. We'll keep an eye on him overnight, she reassured him. Feel free to call any time if you have concerns. Walter expressed his gratitude, aware that the after-hours monitoring would incur extra expenses, yet he couldn't decline the care for Rex. As they made their way to the truck, Emma remained unusually silent beside him, while Walter's phone buzzed. The phone rang, and Sheriff Davis's number lit up the screen. We've got preliminary results from the... Davis stated plainly that the rigs contained notable traces of the band. The pesticide on his clothing, particularly his boots, corresponds precisely with what was discovered. New Year's shed, a wave of relief washed over Walter. We are in the process of charging him. His lawyers are already making claims. Cross-contamination occurs when Riggs frequently visits agricultural sites that utilize legal pesticides. Davis expressed his frustration, but the important update is that the state environmental agency is broadening there. During the investigation, they discovered similar chemical signatures on 3 additional properties that declined cooperation. Selling to Westland revealed unmistakable implications, establishing a clear pattern of actions that indicated a company-wide directive rather than an isolated individual. It significantly bolstered their argument, yet simultaneously elevated the stakes. Westland would now intensify their efforts with greater determination, resources, and desperation. Keep your guard up, Walter Davis concluded. Serious corporate individuals tend to dislike feeling trapped by the moment they arrived at the... As night enveloped the farmhouse, the desert sky ignited with a tapestry of stars, while Walter lent a hand to Anne. Emma, weary from the day's events, navigated her bedtime routine with a heavy heart, determined to keep Rex's beloved toy close by her side. She explained sleepily about the pillow to keep it warm for him. Once she had drifted off, Walter settled onto the porch, enveloped by the darkness. Surrounding him felt stifling instead of serene. The vacant spot next to him where Rex typically rested appeared to highlight the void left by the dog when he had come to rely on the quiet presence of the animal. His phone rang once more shortly after midnight. Dr. Mitchell's voice emerged, strained with worry about Walter. Rex's condition deteriorated rapidly, with his temperatures spiking and his kidney values showing concerning changes. Persisted in rising even though she was hesitant about the 4 fluids. I believe you and Emma should join. The unspoken implication lingered in the atmosphere between them. Come now before it's too late. Walter's hands trembled as he concluded the call. He remained motionless on the porch, immobilized by the burden of what he... It was necessary to wake Emma to potentially bid farewell to Rex. Allow her to rest in serene unawareness until the dawn unveils the harsh reality. For the first time since the funeral, neither option felt tolerable. Walter Thompson concealed his face in his hands, overwhelmed with grief for his son, granddaughter, for the dog he had taken on with some hesitation, yet now found it impossible to envision life without her presence within the home. A soft voice emerged. "Grandpa, is it Rex?" Emma lingered in the doorway, her tousled blonde hair a testament to her recent slumber, her wide eyes reflecting a mix of wonder and curiosity. "With trepidation and wisdom that surpasses her age, indeed, my dear." Walter straightened his shoulders. "We need to go to him now," he said, urgency in his voice as they prepared for the drive to the doctor. Mitchell's clinic lingered in a heavy silence, the truck's headlights slicing through a darkness that felt remarkably profound. Emma sat gripping Rex's stuffed squirrel, her face ashen against the dashboard, softly spoken words escaping her lips in quiet supplication, lessons imparted by Walter following David's passing. Even though the late July night was still warm, she felt a slight tremor as she wrapped herself in her favorite quilt adorned with faded constellations. "He's strong," Walter said, breaking the quiet enveloped them as they made the turn onto Main Street. "Rex embodies the spirit of a warrior." Emma nodded silently, her gaze locked on the approaching clinic. Windows glowed softly in the darkness as Walter drove into the vacant parking lot. Doctor." Mitchell stepped out from the front door. Her expression was serious enough to make his heart sink. "His temperature is 105, she said, noted softly as they neared. "The kidneys are exhibiting minimal function. He isn't reacting to the medication as we had anticipated." Walter felt Emma's delicate hand slip into his grip with unexpected force. "Can we see in?" she inquired of her, her voice unwavering, even as tears brimmed in her eyes. "Doctor?" Mitchell nodded, guiding them through the dimly lit waiting room toward the treatment area in the back. Rex lay on a stainless surface, the steel examination table, his once powerful body now appearing diminished beneath amidst the intricate web of forelines and monitoring devices. His breathing emerged in shallow, labored gasps. Her eyes were half closed, yet they widened as they drew near. "Rex," Emma whispered, stepping closer. "We're here, boy." Despite his evident frailty, the German doctor. Mitchell lifted Emma, and the shepherd's tail moved slightly in acknowledgement. It would be wise to advise her to handle the medical equipment with care as Emma set the stuffed squirrel beside it. Rex's head leaned in close to his ear, murmuring words too soft for the adults to hear. Walter stood slightly apart, a tempest of feelings constricting his chest. The dog appeared so profoundly defenseless, this creature who had bravely confronted countless bees to safeguard its territory, who had rescued Emma from drowning, who had stayed true to David's memory when Walter himself had not succeeded in doing so. "What options are available to us?" he inquired of the doctor. Mitchell, his voice low, guided him a few steps away, out of Emma's earshot. "At this stage, kidney function is severely compromised, and he requires specialized care. Exceptional veterinary nephrology care, uniquely offered at the University Teaching Hospital in Phoenix." "Then that's where we'll take him," Walter said, unwavering in his decision. Dr. Mitchell's expression was serious. "Walter, I need to be honest with you. The transport might prove to be overwhelming given his condition, and the dialysis treatment. It could potentially amount to thousands of dollars, yet there's no assurance of achieving success." The financial reality struck Walter with the force of a physical blow. Between Emma's medical bills and the farm's ongoing struggles, their situation felt increasingly dire. The funds had nearly evaporated for Rex's ongoing treatment, could signify unthinkable decisions, potentially jeopardizing the farm that symbolized David's legacy, almost as if one were delving into his mind. Dr. Mitchell rested a hand on his arm. "There's an alternative. We can provide him comfort and prevent his suffering. Let him depart gracefully, enveloped by the warmth of those who cherish him." The proposal of euthanasia, though well-intentioned, ignited unforeseen. Walter's anger was palpable. He stated firmly to David that it was not an option. "We have placed our trust in him, and we never abandon our family." Before Dr. Mitchell could reply. Emma's voice soared from beside Rex. Grandpa Rex is attempting to convey a message to us. Walter has come back to the... On the examination table, Rex lifted his head slightly, his eyes now wide open and alert despite his weakened state. The dog emitted a gentle whine, then intentionally rested his paw on Emma's arm, where numerous healing beast marks were visible. Stayed in sight. Look, Emma exclaimed, her eyes growing wide. He glances at my arm, then shifts his gaze to the medicine, as she indicates the IV bag. I believe he's attempting to convey a message regarding the bees. Walter and Dr. Mitchell shared a fleeting look, both adults momentarily caught in uncertainty, how to reply to a child's urgent understanding of coincidence while considering Rex's intentional actions. Walter paused to ponder the behavior of the bees, musing aloud. Elena mentioned that bee venom possesses medicinal properties. Dr. Mitchell frowned. There are indeed some traditional uses, yes. Apotherapy, specifically bee venom therapy, has been utilized for centuries to address various inflammatory conditions. We are facing acute kidney injury here. Please contact Eleanor. Emma urged, her expression suddenly animated. She knows everything about bees. Despite the late hour, Walter found himself dialing Eleanor's number. The older woman responded without hesitation, as though she had been poised by the phone for this very moment. How is he? She inquired directly, and Walter clarified Rex's situation, the state of affairs, and Emma's peculiar insight regarding the dog's actions. She believes he's attempting to convey something regarding the bee stings. Elena remained quiet for a considerable time. Walter, this may seem a bit out there, but bee venom includes substances that can be detrimental or beneficial based on the amount, and that's what Dr. Mitchell mentioned. But Eleanor interrupted the discussion about the pesticide used by Westland. I've been delving into neonicotinoids since we discovered them on your property, and there's new research coming to light that suggests melittin, a component found in bee venom, may have the potential to counteract certain pesticides poisonings. Walter placed the phone on speaker, allowing Dr. Mitchell to listen. Are you suggesting? Hannah replied that Rex is suffering from pesticide poisoning, not just bee venom, suggesting both possibilities. What if the massive bee attack sparked a distinctive response within his system? The chemicals from the pesticide typically would have been lethal if he had been directly exposed, but what if the substantial amounts of bee venom resulted in a certain type of... Dr. Mitchell leaned in closer to the phone, ready to counteract the situation. That's quite speculative. We don't even have confirmation regarding Rex. Walter interjected that the pesticide was actually exposed. Sheriff Davis called earlier. The lab discovered matching pesticide residue on. Rex was on high alert regarding the clothing in the rig, as he recognized it from the shed. He must have encountered it firsthand as a new possibility emerged for Walter. On the day of the attack, Rex was probing into something near the shed. What could it be? If he had already encountered the pesticide, what would happen if the bees became aggressive? Due to their awareness of the chemical present on him, Dr. Mitchell's professional skepticism emerged, clearly marked by a thirst for knowledge. Yet even if that were the case, I fail to understand how it assists us now. We can't precisely subject him to additional bee venom. No, Eleanor agreed that we might be able to isolate the beneficial compound, preserve medicinal bee venom extract for my arthritis treatments. It's pure melittin. To ensure proper dilution, you aim to administer an experimental treatment to a dog suffering from kidney failure. Dr. Mitchell's tone conveyed her stance on this suggestion. What alternative options are available? He asked quietly, and the veterinarian sighed. From a medical perspective, there are very few quality options available. Emma, having absorbed every word of the adult conversation, finally interjected. Rex endeavored to shield us from the harmful chemicals, while the bees sought to defend their own. Returned from Rex, carrying the scent of chemicals, yet perhaps the bees played a role in his transformation. Unbeknownst to them, The adults became quiet, captivated by the child's straightforward yet profound. Walter conducted a deep evaluation, observing Rex, whose keen eyes stayed locked on. Emma's gaze shifted to the array of monitors displaying his deteriorating vital signs. Eleanor, Walter decided to bring your extract, Dr. Mitchell. What's the worst that could occur if we give this a shot? Accelerated kidney failure, anaphylaxis. Death responded with stark honesty. Yet, considering his present path, the unvoiced conclusion lingered in the atmosphere. Rex was probably already on the brink of death when Eleanor arrived 20 minutes later. With a small cooler in hand, her silver hair was quickly pinned up, and her clothes were carelessly tossed on. She moved with an air of casualness, yet her gestures were deliberate as she detailed the properties of the extract. To Dr. Mitchell, this is quite unconventional, the veterinarian cautioned, as she assessed a tiny vial could jeopardize my license. I'm willing to sign any waiver you require, Walter assured her that this decision rests with me after discussing the appropriate dosage. With a careful estimation, Mitchell readied a small syringe filled with the extract, meticulously diluted to suit Rex's body. Walter and Emma stood beside the examination table, each placing a hand on it, softly resting on Rex's fur, as though bestowing him with strength. This will either provide assistance or Dr. Mitchell left the thought incomplete, as she administered the solution into Rex's foreline for several minutes. Nothing seemed to. Rex's breathing continued to be labored, and his vital signs showed no signs of improvement. Emma leaned her face against Walter's side, unable to bear the sight of the monitors that so vividly showcased Rex's struggle, then gradually faded into subtlety. Rex's breathing relaxed as one of the monitors emitted a beep, indicating that his oxygen levels were rising. Dr. Mitchell moved swiftly, assessing his vital signs and drawing blood for prompt analysis. His heart rate is stabilizing, she reported, her professional detachment giving way to a hint of cautious optimism. Temperature dropping slightly. Walter barely allowed himself to dream, yet Emma was unrestrained in her confidence. I told you, she murmured to Rex, you just needed B medicine because your part B. As the night unfolded into morning, they remained steadfast in their watch. Dr. Mitchell conducted early tests, meticulously recording a gradual yet consistent enhancement in Rex's kidney function. By the break of dawn, the dog managed to lift his head, gratefully accepting a few ice chips from Emma's hand. Hannah dozed off in a chair in the waiting room, while Walter stayed wide awake, gazing at the sunrise filtering through the clinic windows. The golden light poured over the examination room floor, prompting him to ponder the unusual chain of events that had brought them to this moment. A bee attack that almost claimed the lives of both Emma and Rex, yet possibly spared the dog from undetected pesticide poisoning. Sheriff Davis arrived at around 8 a.m., coffee in hand and a resolute look on his face. The lab results for the pesticide samples have arrived, he declared. The concentration was almost 10 times the lethal dose. Whoever placed it there had more sinister intentions than merely wanting to scare you off. Walter, they were creating an environmental hazard that could have poisoned your well water, your crops, and wildlife. Rex recognized it. Walter said quietly that's why he was so agitated that day. Davis nodded. His police training probably saved your lives. That level of contamination seeping into groundwater could have severely sickened you and Emma. The revelation sent a chill through Walter. The corporate pressure hadn't just been about forcing them to sell, it had crossed into something far more sinister. We've issued arrest warrants for both Riggs and Harlow, Davis continued. State Environmental Protection is involved now, and the FBI's Public Corruption Unit is looking at potential racketeering charges if this pattern extends to other Westland acquisition targets. Walter took in this news with a sense of grim satisfaction. It was finally over. Davis's expression stayed serious. The immediate threat was gone, yes, but corporations like Westland have deep pockets and long memories. This battle may be only starting. As if attuned to the weight of the discussion, Rex fought to rise, his effort drawing the gaze of all present. Dr. Mitchell rushed to his side, assessing his vital signs with clear astonishment. His kidney values are still elevated but showing remarkable improvement, she announced. I'd never witnessed such a swift recovery from acute kidney injury. Eleanor, roused by the stir, offered a knowing smile. Wisdom is ancient wisdom. Sometimes the old ways truly know best. Emma smiled brightly, caressing Rex's head softly. Rex stands out in a remarkable way. He is the most courageous and intelligent dog imaginable. For the first time in days, Walter experienced hope taking the place of fear, even though the threats persisted, particularly from Westland's legal resources. Their precarious finances and the farm's uncertain future loomed large. Yet they had not only survived the immediate crisis, but had also unearthed a truth that could safeguard others grappling with similar corporate pressures. Rex, the dog Walter had once viewed as a painful reminder of loss, had transformed into the unexpected hero that united them, all human and canine, young and old, past and future. What happens now? Emma looked up at her grandfather, her trust evident. Walter placed one hand on her shoulder and the other on Rex's head. Now we heal, all of us together, out in painted Saguaro Valley in subdued golds and russets, the desert landscape transformed by the changing season. 3 months had passed since the day Rex had collapsed at Dr. Mitchell's clinic. 3 months of recovery, restoration, and unforeseen fresh starts. Walter stood on the farmhouse porch, cradling a coffee mug that warmed his hands against the early morning chill. From this vantage point, he could see Emma and Rex in the eastern field. The girl's golden hair caught the sunlight, while the German shepherd moved with renewed vigor beside her. Rex's recovery had been nothing short of remarkable. Within 2 weeks of the experimental treatment, his kidney function had returned to near normal levels. His resilience grows stronger each day, Grandpa, Emma called, waving with enthusiasm. Rex discovered another one, and Walter smiled, setting down his coffee to join them. The training exercise had seamlessly integrated into their morning routine, featuring small containers with trace amounts of various substances cleverly concealed around the property. Rex would adeptly locate them using his specialized detection skills. What started as a way to help the dog regain its confidence had transformed into something far more significant. Well done, my friend. Walter knelt down, affectionately ruffling Rex's fur as the dog proudly pointed out a small container hidden among the rocks. Their paths of recovery had intertwined, each step reflecting the other's healing journey. Emma's physical recovery was rapid, but her emotional strength was even more remarkable. The nightmares that had haunted her in the weeks after the attack had slowly faded, giving way to a deep fascination with bees and environmental protection. Much to Walter's bemused concern, law enforcement Sheriff Davis states that Rex has the potential to be recertified as a working detection dog. Emma, with a serious expression that belies her age, informed him that Rex could assist in locating other harmful chemicals similar to those that caused him harm. Walter nodded with contemplation. That's an option that merits reflection. The legal aftermath of the bee attack unfolded with unexpected rapidity. Thomas Riggs accepted a plea deal, offering evidence against James Harlow and 3 other Westland executives. The corporation now confronted federal charges, its expansion plans stymied by court injunctions and regulatory investigations. Hannah Parker's role had evolved from simply being a neighbor to becoming an authority in her field. Her compelling testimony before state agricultural committees ignited legislation aimed at bolstering protections for small farms against corporate pressure. The bill, referred to by local media as the Rex Thompson Bill, was making its way through the state legislature, garnering bipartisan support. The financial burdens that had previously loomed over Walter had lessened, thanks in part to a GoFund campaign initiated by Emma's school, which had successfully covered Rex's medical expenses. The coverage of their story by the local newspaper had attracted the interest of environmental groups, and legal aid organizations eager to provide support. Most notably, 5 other small farm owners had stepped forward with comparable experiences of Westland's coercive tactics, resulting in a class action lawsuit that offered the prospect of compensation for the first time in years. As they made their way back to the house, Walter could finally examine the farm's books without the weight of impending doom hanging over him. Walter's phone vibrated with a message from Dr. Mitchell. Lab results are back. All clear. Time to celebrate. Dinner is still on for tonight. Walter smiled as he showed the message to Emma, who jumped with delight. Rex's final kidney function test had returned to normal, the last medical hurdle in his recovery. Can we make apple pie? Emma inquired, already envisioning the evening's celebrations. Rex enjoys the aroma of apples. I believe that can be organized. Walter acknowledged that the dinner had grown beyond their immediate family, now encompassing Eleanor, Dr. Mitchell, Sheriff Davis, and several neighbors who had stood by them during the crisis. What had started as a medical celebration transformed into something more profound, a reaffirmation of community. Later that afternoon, as Walter assisted Emma in preparing the pie, the atmosphere shifted, reflecting a deeper connection. Rex abruptly lifted his head from his cherished spot by the kitchen doorway, his ears attentively perked forward, tail wagging in a welcoming manner rather than signaling alarm. Simeon was approaching. Walter noticed the time on his watch. It was a bit early for dinner guests. The sound of tires crunching on gravel confirmed Rex's alert. Walter approached the window, surprised to see an unfamiliar, official-looking vehicle pulling up next to Hannah's weather-beaten truck. Stay here with Rex, he instructed Emma as he moved toward the door. Ella Laner was already climbing out of her truck, accompanied by a distinguished-looking man in a business suit carrying a leather portfolio. Her demeanor was surprisingly lively as she introduced everyone. Walter, this is Jeffrey Harmon from the State Environmental Protection Agency. I have some news for you. I figured you'd prefer to hear it directly. When he officially extended his hand, Mr. Thompson, it's a privilege to meet you. Your situation has significantly influenced our department's focus. Walter welcomed them in, where Emma had thoughtfully arranged lemonade and cookies. Her flawless etiquette reflects the early guidance of David and his wife. Rex settled himself next to her chair, his stance both attentive and at ease. Mr. Thompson, Harmon started, taking a glass of lemonade. The state has finalized its evaluation of the environmental harm inflicted by Westland's unlawful pesticide application. In addition to the criminal charges already brought against the company, it has been mandated to create a remediation fund for the impacted properties. He opened his portfolio, retrieving official documents. Your farm is eligible for priority remediation, which encompasses soil testing, well water monitoring, and financial compensation for damages. Walter accepted the papers, scanning the figures with disbelief. The proposed compensation would not only secure the farm's immediate future but also enable improvements they had deferred for years. Furthermore, Harmon maintained his focus, turning his eyes to Rex, who observed him with keen interest. Our department is launching a new canine detection program focused on agricultural chemical enforcement. Given Rex's proven skills and background, we would like to extend a unique opportunity for him and for you should you be interested. Emma leaned forward with enthusiasm, asking, what kind of role? Community education, came the response. Harmon elaborated on the school visits, agriculturist seminars, education showcases. Rex will serve as our program ambassador, guiding individuals in grasping the significance of chemical safety and the preservation of our environment. Walter glanced at Rex, whose tail thumped against the floor as if he understood every word. Sounds like a lot of attention for a farm dog, he said, though his tone held no objection. He's not just a farm dog, Emma corrected with a serious tone, he's a hero. Ella Laner smiled, her weathered hand reaching down to stroke Rex's head. Champions warrant acknowledgement. As evening descended, Walter and Rex's tale yearned to be told. their home brimming with friends and neighbors. The dining table, stretched with borrowed leaves, struggled to fit them all, a testament to their vibrant community. Mitchell presented a delightful surprise for Rex, a dog-safe cake topped with a solitary candle symbolizing his new beginning. Sheriff Davis arrived with the exciting news that the state legislature had officially approved the Agricultural Protection Bill, a direct result of their shared experience. Standing in the kitchen doorway, the moment felt significant. Walter observed Emma as she navigated effortlessly through the crowd of guests. Rex was always close to her, as she shared their tale with impressive grace, sometimes adding flourishes like a child might, yet managing to convey the core truth that love, bravery, and unexpected bonds had guided them from shadows into brightness. Eleanor joined in, presenting a glass of sweet tea. "David would be proud," she said simply. Walter nodded, emotion tightening his throat at the mention of Emma. "Of all of you," Eleanor corrected gently, "including yourself, Walter, especially yourself." As dusk settled over the farm, their guests gathered on the porch to watch the sunset paint the desert sky in brilliant oranges and purples. Emma perched on the steps, one arm casually resting around Rex's strong shoulders, sharing whispered secrets into his eager ear. The German shepherd's gaze remained fixed on her face, his loyalty unwavering, as steadfast as the stars beginning to twinkle in the night sky above them. Walter Thompson gazed across his expanse. The legacy of David, Emma's inheritance, and now Rex's territory to protect. The challenges weren't over. Westland's legal appeals would drag on, the farm would face future droughts and economic uncertainties, and Emma would continue to navigate growing up without her parents. But something fundamental had shifted during those desperate days when bees had swarmed and a dog had screamed in pain, something that felt remarkably like hope. Sometimes, Walter said softly to no one in particular, the most unlikely heroes save us in the most unexpected ways. Rex turned at the sound of his voice, ears perked forward, intelligent eyes meeting Walter's across the gathering dusk. In that silent exchange between man and dog lay understanding, respect, and the quiet acknowledgement of a promise kept to David, to Emma, and to each other, the promise to protect what matters most, no matter the cost, to never give up on family. In Walter Thompson's journey, we witness something that speaks to our deepest hearts. At an age when many feel the world has passed them by, Walter finds renewed purpose through unexpected tragedy. Like many of us who've weathered life's storms, losing loved ones, confronting economic instability, or pondering our significance, Walter initially resists change, holding on to grief instead of embracing what remains. Yet, through Rex's sacrifice and Emma's unwavering faith, he discovers that courage doesn't fade with age, it evolves. Recall the days when families unconditionally supported one another, when communities united against the overpowering forces of corporations, when a man's promise and a simple handshake held true significance. Walter serves as a reminder that these principles are not mere remnants of the past, they are essential lifelines in times of uncertainty. His narrative resonates with our own anxieties, transforming them from burdens into sources of strength. Experiencing the loss of those dear to us while confronting challenges beyond our control reveals a profound truth. We are never too old to advocate for what is just. The wisdom gained over the years is invaluable, and often our most significant impacts arise unexpectedly in the twilight of our existence, when the light shines with the greatest beauty.